Hello everyone, I hope you are having a good day. Today I'll be talking about project phases. So first thing to note is that depending on the organization, you may have a different type of project cycle, project phase, and you may have a customized project management methodology for your organization, so it can vary. Also, in well-known established methodologies like PMP or Prince2, PMD Pro, there are suggestions for like phases, like how a project moves from start to end. And in the PMD Pro, which is project management for development professionals, the phases are like 6 phases. Starts with identification and design, and the last one is end of project transition. The second one is project setup, third one is project planning, fourth one is project implementation, fifth is more going in the background like monitoring, evaluation and control, and sixth one I mentioned is end of project transition. And the planning and implementation is shown as an iterative cycle, which is because you may come up with a good plan, great plan, then move on to implementation and actually realize that due to some field reality, due to some challenges, you may have to adjust your plan. So you change your plan, then go back to implementation. So that's why it's in an iterative cycle. So that's PMD Pro phase. And one question I often get in training courses, live training courses, is that many organizations have project cycle management diagram. Like if you look at World Bank website, you will see I think 8 or 9 steps. Food and Agriculture Organization, they have a few steps. You can see that goes round, and similarly European Union, they have their project cycle in terms of like these 5 stages, starting from programming and then implementation, evaluation, different phases. But one thing is, why is PMD Pro phase diagram not like that? The simple answer to that is that those are project cycle diagrams and represent all the projects and programs that those organizations deal with. So for example, for World Bank, every project must go through certain steps in terms of approval and other thing. And obviously for each country, it starts with the country assistant strategy, because for each country World Bank would have a strategy, and within that they will decide what programs, what projects they have. Whereas PMD Pro phase diagram is more actually about one particular project, its journey and its life. So from the start to the end, and the end is rather than closing, project closing or anything, is called end of project transition, and that's something specific or sort of unique in development sector, development project. Because it's more like a transition rather than just straightforward closing. So closing is one of the 4 scenarios in end of the project transition. So that's about phases. Now next question is, many organizations, many people, when they see the phase diagram for PMD Pro, they try to figure out what particular phase their project is in. Now here, one thing I normally mention or explain, that you need to first of all realize how projects are organized in your organization, whether you follow any particular project management methodology, what are the phases there. If you don't follow any, if you want to still figure out which phase your project is, what you need to consider is that one project that actually may be on different phases for different organizations, same project. So that can sound a bit tricky, but how is that? So imagine a donor organization, let's say UK Aid or World Bank or European Union, any organization. They are going to fund a project about, let's say, education sector reform, or poverty reduction, like creating livelihood projects and things. Now for each of their projects, they have their cycles and thing, and they would initially issue a call for expression of interest. And many private sector organizations may actually submit an expression of interest, say we are interested to participate and implement this education sector reform project in country X or country Y. So this is like, let's say 10 different organizations are actually submitting expression of interest to let's say World Bank or European Union to say that we are interested to implement, manage, this execute this project which is about education reform in country X. Country X government actually already have been talking to the World Bank or European Union, whichever donor, let's say the donor organization, development partner. So they are already in discussions and they have probably signed some agreement. Now this means they have signed the agreement, and after that the donor organization or the government, maybe depending on whether it's a loan or grant, they may actually be issuing the call for expression of interest. And for the organizations, the 10 organizations that are submitting, let's say consulting firm or NGOs or think tank, they are submitting expression of interest. So for the 10 organizations I mentioned, they are submitting expression of interest. They are basically saying, I'm interested to execute, implement this education reform project, let me know, I'm really keen to do that. So for each 10 of these organizations, this project is very early stage, like possibly identification and design, if they follow that project phase diagram. Why? Because this is still at the earliest stage. They will not set up, which in the PMD Pro phases is like setup is when you formally set it up, go ahead. So that would be for this organization, it would be really when they win the project, which would be probably after a few more things. For example, normally if you are familiar with the development sector projects, in many cases you submit the expression of interest. So out of these 10, maybe 5 would be shortlisted, and these 5 would be invited to submit proposals, detailed proposals, how they will manage the project, how they will solve the education problems there, how they will go about various things. So that's project proposal. And after that, maybe one organization will be selected, or maybe 3, and then those 3 make presentations, and then the donor and government jointly select one organization to implement this project. Now for those, in some cases it could be NGOs. So the thing is, for these 10 organizations, whoever wins the project, that's when they are likely to move on to setup phase, because that's when this becomes a project for them. Until then, they might actually have bid for it, and then that's it. It's not going ahead because they did not win the project. However, for the government organization, when the tendering is started, as in the expression of interest is being invited, let's say it's Ministry of Education's project, because we're talking about education reform. So Ministry of Education is receiving funds from European Union or World Bank, Ministry of Education of country X. Now what is happening is, for this ministry, this project is already in the implementation phase. How? Because they have already done the planning, what would be done, how this work will be managed, and it will be given out, like contracted to consulting firms, and they are now doing the procurement, which is implementation. So they have done all those planning. Now the project has moved on, and they're doing the implementation, asking for proposals, and they will select. So for them, this same thing is sort of like already in the implementation phase. For the government or in consulting firms, it could be in the identification and design phase, and likewise. So this is the point, is like you need to look from your organization's perspective, like what you would call identification and design phase. When would you say, okay, we are now entering setup phase, or how do you set it up, or when do you do the detailed planning, those type of thing, and when is implementation. So those are the things to keep in mind about the phases. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing your comments or questions. Please post them below the video, and I would be happy to get back to you. See you in the next video. Thank you.